This is, I need to really get the numbers right on what podcast it is. This is the Fill the Gap podcast. I'm your host, Cody Allen, and I'm here today with my boy, Damon Pridgeon. I just figured out it was not Damon De Leon, which it is in my last, that's your last name in my phone, but we're going to go by Pridgeon. What's up, man? Before we jump in on who the hell you are, I guess who the hell I am. This podcast is sponsored by Cuts Clothing. Cuts Clothing, the best men's, we'll call it work leisure apparel. I'm wearing their shirt. I wear it everyone. I'm actually wearing their joggers too. If you guys can see on the podcast, put my leg up. I don't know. I love their stuff. I've been rocking with them since 2018. Shit, that's 5 years now. Their stuff's just next level. Quality, fit, consistency. A lot of times with clothing manufacturers, you get a bunch of different cuts. That was a weird thing. You get a bunch of different fits from shirt to shirt, right? They've just been super clean, super fit. They know what they do extremely well. They now have women's clothes, so you can get Rosie some stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
Their women's clothing is fire. I'll just say it straight up. It's very trendy. It's very hip. I'm 30. I'm about to be 32 next week, so I'm not trendy. I'm not hip. So these clothes help me stay there, right? Anyway, use code TheCodyAllen. You get 15% off anything on your order. I just posted this new spring drop on my story, and my boy Ryan just hit me. He's like, "Is your code still good?" Blah blah blah. So yes, the code's good. Use the code. They sponsor the podcast.
I'm gonna order it right after this.
Exactly. See, we'll get you hooked up. Anyway, this is your first podcast you've ever done?
Yes, sir. First one ever.
First one ever. So
with the legendary Cody Allen. I mean, it doesn't get any better.
Far from that. So the Fill the Gap podcast, obviously, we talk about just how life. We talk about life. We talk about sports. We talk about all of it. You played high school football, high school sports, right?
Yes, sir.
A lot of people ask me, they're like, "Oh, like how can I get on the podcast? What's the requirement?" You had to have played some sort of organized sports at some point in your life. That could be t-ball, which I never played t-ball, by the way. I went straight to slow pitch baseball, and I sucked at it. Damn. But
me too, man. I got in a wild slump in about third year in of baseball. Got in a wild slump, never got out of it, and said, the hell with this sport. But it's one of those sports that I wish I had continued playing.
I had like an 8-year slump. Well, you're Puerto Rican too. You're probably
yes, sir, I'm
automatically
Puerto
good
Rican.
at it.
Yeah, exactly. I think I just had to play past the slump. Everybody got tested.
All right, man. So I guess fill us in a little bit on who you are, where you're from, and then we'll jump right in.
So I'm Damon Pridgeon. I was born in Fremont, moved out to Sacramento in middle school, went to Intercom High School, got my degree in psychology at Sacramento State, and now I do a bunch of stuff. I'm just like you, Cody. I'm an entrepreneur.
I know your degree in psych. That's dope.
Yeah, and it's funny because everybody always asks me, so do you use psychology with kind of like tongue in cheek in all the stuff that I do, because I've had a bunch of different kind of business now, and I tell them every single business and every single thing that I do involves psychology. So,
every day, I know you're probably psychoanalyzing me right now.
Now, you know what the real thing is, biggest takeaway from getting a psychology degree is it teaches you how to have empathy and to just remain open and non-judgmental with people.
So basically everybody should get a psych degree.
Yeah, I mean, it should be taught at least at the bare minimum in all high schools, for sure.
Do they teach it in high school?
They didn't at Intercom, but this was, I graduated in 2010. Now I'm dating myself. I graduated in 2010. So
I graduated in 2009, so I'm right there with you, bro. That's interesting, man, because people always tell me, like, I have my degree in economics. I don't know why gas is expensive. I don't know why eggs are expensive. I don't know who got elected to where. That's not my thing, right? I do know a little bit of like GDP and the basic stuff that I don't use anytime. Mm-hmm. But when I played football, I was always like, man, I wish I just got like a BS comms degree, communications degree, like everybody else on my team, because it was just the easy degree to get.
Yeah.
But I will say, people that got comms degrees are so far ahead of everybody else when it comes to like corporate America, because the ability to communicate and to take a complex subject and convey it in a way that the masses will understand is like one of the most powerful things. That's how you become a politician, right?
Definitely.
That's like the ability to like talk in particular ways and enunciate and just use different words to evoke some sort of emotion. That's everything, right? And I just remember all my boys were just like fucking falling asleep in class and shit. But they got their degrees in it. And I will say, if I could go back, let me ask you that question. If you could go back to school and get any degree, what would it be?
I would stay right where I'm at. I wouldn't change anything that happened in school or in my life to be where I'm at today with the people who are around me and everything that's going on, you know? I think everything happened for a reason. I'm one of those guys, so.
Yeah, I'd probably go back and be a doctor, but.
Yeah. Well, then you got to think the trade-off from being a doctor is you get no time for yourself.
I don't have time for myself right now. So.
But now it's on your terms, you know what I mean? You don't got a hospital, you know,
True.
beckoning and calling, and you could do things remote, you know?
Right. Well, anyway, we were talking off camera before. Obviously, we talk a ton. You're a fucking nerd like me.
Yep.
Let's just call a spade a spade.
Yes, sir.
Right? You are linked into Huberman. You read 10 times more than me. You bought me 2 books, which I'm extremely appreciative. Haven't opened either of them.
It's all right. You'll get
You caught me at a bad time, though. You caught me January. It was a busy month for me. I was traveling a ton.
Yep.
Speaking of which, I'm going to Austin next week. If any of you guys are in Austin, of course, this will probably release in 3 weeks. So if I saw any of you guys in Austin, you didn't see me. What have you always been someone who has been like on the path? I guess I won't say a path like higher learning, but like after you get out of school, high school, you stop having to learn for the most part, right? Like structured learning.
Right.
Then you pay to go to school, college, most of us, not me. Thank you. You pay to go to school and that's the next level up, right? And then you graduate college. And a lot of people stop doing any sort of structured working. A lot of times people stop working on themselves in general, which is a whole nother issue. When did you start that kind of like journey of developing yourself? Have you always been that way? Like we've been hanging out all day today. We had a workout. You meditated. You wrote. Like these are things that 99% of people don't do.
Yeah. So really COVID kicked off a lot of my change. Okay. Once COVID happened, you know, we were all at home. We all had a lot of time on our hands and we all had to busy ourselves some way, shape, or form. I luckily chose pro-social behaviors such as reading, writing, and meditating, and also, you know, listening to Huberman, as you said. I kind of internalized all the statistics that they were putting out there and all the protocols that, you know, just to optimize our cognitive well-being, you know what I mean?
Right.
Because that's the first step to being successful is to get right up here.
100%. That's why I started going to therapy. That's really why I work out. People are always like, you trainer? I'm like, no. I work out so that my upstairs works appropriately. And obviously there's a bit of vanity in it, but mostly for overall health and wellness.
I'm one of those guys who like, you know, I embody the whole you only live once thing, but right. You only live once, so why not optimize every single thing that you do with your time here? You know what I mean?
That is so, I'm sorry to cut you off. That is just so like, cause I'm 30, I turn 32 next week. So many people that I know are like, all right, cool. You're after, this happened when I turned 30 in COVID year or whatever, like in March. So like, Damn. It was like right at the precipice of it. Yeah. I remember my 30th birthday, I was actually in Austin. It was like the last city that was open.
No shit. Wow.
But, so many people are like, when you turn 30, you're done doing certain things. And I'm like, I'm just getting started. If anything, I'm more wise now. I'm smarter now. I'm more well off now. I want to do more stuff. I want to utilize my body, my mind for more things now.
Right.
And so I feel like that's when I should be more tactful about the way that I treat my body so I can get more out of it versus just being like, I don't play softball anymore because my knee hurts a little bit. Right. I don't know. Right. There are injuries, right? But a lot of times it goes from not using your body. You don't use it, you lose it, people say, right? Like inactivity, I think is we're not going to talk about obesity or nutrition or whatever, but inactivity is probably one of the worst things for people post 30 in my mind. That's physical Definitely. And mental,
yeah,
right?
I agree.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And you know, there's a lot of stuff coming out from anthropology these days, and they say, you know, the hunter and gatherers that, you know, were our ancestors, they did about 16,000 steps a day. And that's something that we don't do to this day. Much of us are really sedentary. You know, people are proud when they get 10,000 steps, me included. You know, and there's a lot of metabolic disorders that have arisen because of this. You know, because we're so inactive. That's why we got diabetes and all these things started sprouting up. You know, because the human body is meant for movement.
Right, and it's just, I don't know. We as people just are always looking for. I'll speak as Americans, right? We're always looking for the next magic pill, the next thing that will just make it so we don't have to work hard at all. And I think that we overcomplicate it personally.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that we are like, all right, cool. Like, what's the next crazy ab wheel shaker machine that we could use? Like, why don't you just eat a little bit less than you need? And why don't you just walk outside? Just go outside, right? Like Huberman says, like one of the most basic things that's going to improve your cognitive functioning in your life and your day is just looking into the sun, getting sunlight in your first part of your day. Yeah. Start your circadian rhythm, right?
Yes, sir.
These are just so many things that I wish that I would have known when I was younger, you know?
Same.
Especially when you talk about health and nutrition, like from when I played football.
I was eating Wingstop before the games and stuff.
Bro, during the games. Bro, yeah. I had just such a poor diet. I knew what protein, carbs, fats were, right? But like, did I? Mm-hmm. I definitely didn't like know what a macro. Like, I just wish that there was so much more, and I'm sure that it was readily available. It just wasn't. I didn't access it, and I didn't like put it into my routine.
Right.
So anyway,
and you know, part of that too was that we didn't have a wide array of dissemination of information as we do now. Right. Now we have a dude like Andrew Huberman who's actually giving us the statistical facts behind things. You know, there's plenty of people on YouTube who also do the same thing that Huberman does. You know, so we have more avenues to obtain this information now.
True.
And a lot of these studies kind of just came out within the last 10 years as well.
That is the crazy thing about access to information, right? So like, one thing, I just saw a TikTok on it actually. This dude said, I love the generation that I grew up in because I had no cell phones growing up, and then I had cell phones in like at high school. Like the iPhone came out in 2006 or something. Mm-hmm. And then we didn't have social media. Then we had MySpace. And he said I got to watch top 8s ruin friendships. Kids now, if they saw what a top 8 was, they'd cancel MySpace because they're like, this is so insensitive. You can't rank friends. Like, we literally used to rank friends based on like how they treated us that day.
It was petty.
There was like a difference between like guys would get like a top 8 and it'd be like more stoic, like it would stay there. Mm-hmm. Girls could literally change based off of happenings of the weekend. And then you get to college, Facebook started, whatever. Mm-hmm. And we got Four Locos, the good ones. We've had a bunch of good shit, but at the same time, man, if you got in like early, I'm talking about access to information, like YouTube was what, 2006? If you're an early adopter of that, then like those people would make millions and millions of dollars.
Yeah.
You could do it now, obviously, still too, if you just have something relevant to say.
Yeah. There's way more competition, way more noise.
Exactly. And there's something to be said about that is all information out there viable, right? There's some dude out there right now that has 1 million followers and gets 50 million views a month that just sits in his backyard with his asshole pointing up at the sun, right? And that guy is like an expert in his field. So that's something that, I mean, I don't know. Who am I to say who's right and wrong? I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
Let's give me some sort of superpower. I'm not going to do it. Right? You look like Liver King, right?
Yeah.
Liver King, like, right? Like, who's at fault, right? Is it the people that were dumb enough to believe him? Or does he assume some sort of responsibility for like duping people? I mean, I don't know. Consumers are, that is a crazy thing. It's like a crazy thing about like sports, right? So in sports and life, in business, there are what we call like authorities within the space, right? Yep. You look at your football coach and you're like, all right, you know everything about football. I'm going to trust and listen to you. Mm-hmm. We don't really do a lot of, especially when you're younger, a lot of like background checks. Like, do you really know what the fuck you're talking about? I can candidly say that I had some football coaches that were probably not smart. Right. Right? Right. Not even just book smart, just like not football smart. Right. They got the job because of one reason or another. That's fine. Now, as a smarter adult, I do my checks and balances on people, right? Like, I think that's super important. I think that people should do that in general, especially as you get older. You should do it when you're younger, but you're not as wise, you're not as smart.
And now we have the technology to do so.
Right. And so like, but now you have people that are like, still like, yeah, this guy ate fucking pig testicles and got shredded, right? So it's like people have access to information, but a lot of those people are willfully ignorant or willfully naive. Like people know that the answer to like being healthier is living healthier, but they're like, I can go smash Taco Bell, drink as much as I want on the weekends, but as long as I choke down some pig testicles or bull testicles on Sunday, I'll be good by Monday.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, who does the onus fall on?
All right, and to your point, there is a lot of misinformation out there. I would almost guess to say that there's more misinformation than actual good information out there. And it's up to you to decide. It's up to the viewer to, to really take your attention into your own control, Right. Attend to things that are you have to vet them, of course, but attend to things that are going to benefit you. And the bull testicle thing, you gotta vet it. That's why the authority figure comes in so bigly, and that's why I'm big on a dude like Huberman, because he's a Stanford professor and he cites all of his sources. Make sure people are citing their sources. That's a big thing.
Yeah, and it's always talking about what's more optimal, right? When we talk about efficiency, people always tell me they ask me rather, what supplement could I take to put on muscle? And I say, there are a lot of steps prior to taking a single supplement to put on muscle. Right. Right? They're all right, well, what should I eat? You could start by just eating whole, natural, single ingredient foods, right? Go a step back further from that. You could focus on your sleep management, stress management, just all these other things that play a massive role on your body's ability to synthesize muscle proteins and get bigger, that's you're a guy trying to do that. Speaking of which, you're vegan.
Yes, sir.
How long have you been vegan?
A little bit over a year now.
Oh, it's only been that long?
Yeah.
What was the reason for the switch, and how do you feel now? You're 30 now?
Yes.
And then when you did maybe late in your later 20s?
So I would have kind of digestive problems, but typical digestive problems what all the things that Pepto-Bismol covers up is the symptoms that I would experience, the heartburn, the indigestion and stuff. One time I ate some pizza and I had so much indigestion that I felt sick, like I had a fever or flu, and that's how my body reacted.
Okay.
And I ended up figuring out that it was indigestion. I counterbalanced that with mustard. Mustard, it's an old school thing that my dad told me to do. Just take some mustard if you got indigestion. But our society is really used to just covering up symptoms instead of listening to our body. And I was the type of dude to eat meat every single meal. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We're eating something with meat on the plate. Right. And then I didn't really correlate that with my energy levels, because I would have to drink 2 cups of coffee a day. And I just thought this was normal, and I just took it. So, and that's the thing, is once I went vegan, after a month or so, I started feeling it different. I'm like, wow, I'm not tired so much all the time now, and I'm thinking way clearer, and I have more energy for everything that I want to do in life. So that's what really pushed me over the edge, and that's why I just kept doing it, man. And now I incorporated. I'm still 90% plant-based, but I do have meat and fish once a week, because I need the enzymes that come from those things.
Right, yeah, because more complete protein.
Yes,
right?
Sir. Yep.
Your branched chain amino acids. Yeah, and obviously I'm a guy. I own a fucking barbecue rub seasoning company, right? I'm a meat,
which is awesome, by the way. I put it on some salmon last night. Some of the rubs, some of your rubs from Cusco Cuts. Man. I put that on salmon. It was fire. So
I obviously am on the opposite end of the spectrum. I'm a big red meat kind of guy. I get my levels tested every few months, and cholesterol's in check. All of that is good. But I will say that people need to eat to what they need out of their body. So many people come in and they just gorge themselves on this massive amount of food. They see a spike in their insulin levels or blood sugar, and they get that midday lull, or that lull right after they eat, right? That crash. People always think that it's it's the big meal. It's if you had a big salad, that wouldn't elicit the same response, right? You're having this big steak or this big burger. This is a carbs, fat, sugar, protein thing all together. But it's a lot of times people don't understand, you were talking about yourself, you ate to fuel your body for what you needed, right? You get older, you have a more sedentary lifestyle. You don't need to be smashing 4,000 calories of a burger, a steak, whatever it is, right? And a lot of people are just out there still eating for that. So it's interesting, man, especially when you, I think from a morality standpoint, there's nothing that you can really refute, right? It's a who's more important, people or animals thing. Obviously, it is more immoral to eat animals, right? It's just like, how can you argue that, right?
Yeah.
But then you have to look at it from the standpoint of like, all right, it's us or them.
Yeah, exactly.
But when you talk about just from a nutrition standpoint, there's so many arguments to be made either way. Obviously, I'm for performance, especially like when I'm training right now, the way that I'm training right now, the way that we trained this morning.
Yeah.
So you need calories, you need all your macronutrients, you got to hit them all. But it's just interesting to see that you had a reason as to why. Because a lot of people will come in and they'll be like, I'm vegan because saving the planet type thing or whatever.
Right.
Not thinking like, all right, like, what's like the immediate reason? You know, it's like, I feel better.
Right.
When I don't. That's like when people say that they do like carnivore. Right? They're saying like, I feel better. I have more energy because they're cut out carbs completely. They're cutting out all those processed foods. I think the biggest determining factor for me is always the fewer ingredients, the less processed, the better I feel. And that's not like a one-time thing. That's like if you can string together a bunch of days, weeks, even a months, I just feel better. These are things that I wish I would have known when I played football.
Yeah. Oh yeah, me too, man. So another thing that brought me to the vegan side is I read a book called How Not to Die by Michael Gerber. Michael Gerber is the founder of nutritionfacts.org. And he was, the studies that he displays for you in that book is just, you can't eat the meat after that and feel like you're doing your body justice, you know? Because but that's the thing, I'm optimizing for longevity. I want to live long. I want to live a long, fruitful life. And that probably came from my parents. My mom had me when she was 40. My dad was already 48, 49. So I could kind of already see the effects of certain lifestyles as you get older. And I want my later years to be as optimal as they can be. And I want to give myself the best chance to live long and to live well. Not just live long and be on all these pills and be feeling like shit the whole time. You know what I mean? I want to live well, be able to hang out with my kids and my grandkids and just be able to live life and enjoy our short time here. You know
That's crazy, man. Or it's not crazy in the sense that like a lot of people might think that, but they don't actually plan for it, right? Because you made a comment earlier about how America just tries to put a Band-Aid on so much shit. And we can get into big pharma and get into how society operates, and it's a lot harder to make changes in your life because we think so short term, not long term. But at the end of the day, the human body is so, I was just talking to a girl about this, I was talking to somebody, I was like, human body's so fucking crazy, man. Like, two girls can hang out for a couple weeks together and their periods will just sync up, right? Like we don't, like you could cut your leg and your body will just heal itself. Like we take it for granted so much, right? Human body is absolutely insane. And I just think we kind of treat it like shit.
Yeah.
We could treat it like shit because that's like the standard, right? Even like, and do what you want as a person, right?
Of course.
But even like drinking alcohol. Alcohol is literally a toxin that you only drink it so that you can start to feel poisoned a little bit, right?
Yep.
Off balance.
Yep.
Your inhibitions are loosened up a little bit. Maybe your vision's a little blurred. Like it's literally poison, right? Which is fine. Drink it. I've drank more than most. I guarantee it. And it's just like that plays into what do you want out of your body and what do you want out of your mind, right? Because you could do the drag race lifestyle, right? Where you just go balls to the wall and you just hit that 100 meters as fast as you can and you live fast, die hard, quick. Or you could be like more timid and find different joys in life, but like you never swung from the rafters from a nightclub drunk as hell or whatever shit people do, right? Yeah. But like maybe you lived a longer life because that wasn't a big part of your life, right? I don't know, man. I'm big on like free will for people, but it is very interesting to see like the different paths that people take.
Yeah, and it's just human nature. Human nature is just going to tell us, and this comes all the way back from anthropology, where we had to prioritize the short term because people didn't really live that long, or they didn't really develop their brains long enough to get the prefrontal cortex active
to really even understand that there's like more life.
Right, exactly. So now that we know how to do things a little bit better, I think that's why some of us will optimize for the long term, but then you're still going to have your camp that says, you know what, you only live once, and they'll take it the other way. They'll say, you only live once, so I'm going to do all the fun stuff. And that's the thing that people don't do. They don't put off fun, you know? People don't put off fun, and that's why they eat just for fun, because they eat for taste. So I've taken a stoic mindset when I have with my relationship to food, and I think that's what sustained me with my changes, and why I'm able to be vegan for a year plus, because I'm not really prioritizing taste like that. You know what I mean? Taste is such a fleeting reward to me that I'm not gonna eat something that will land me in the hospital in 20, 30 years, like, you know, burgers and fries every single day. You know what I mean?
Tuck your chain into your shirt. It might be hitting the mic.
Oh, damn.
Just a heads up. Yeah, I mean, I'm all for, like, I did one of those question things on my Instagram story last night, and somebody asked, like, what's your don't care about nutrition value, like, cheat meal, go to, like, bad for you meal? And it's like, I'm somebody that's struggled with, like, my weight my entire life. I've always used food as a coping mechanism, especially after my parents' divorce. It's funny because, like, I would see... you know, you had a picture every single year for school, right? And so, like, kindergarten looked like a normal, quote unquote, normal kid. First grade, okay, whatever. But then, like, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, you just saw me balloon up. And my mom even gained a ton of weight in that time frame too. And it was from a lot of the trauma that my parents' relationship was, and then my dad leaving at when I was 6. I haven't seen my dad since I was 6 years old.
He's missing out.
But it's just crazy how good food is. That's a fucked up thing, right? Yeah. Food is so good. In-N-Out is so good.
Fire. And don't get it twisted. I still have my cheat meals, and I still have my times where I do prioritize taste. I'm not like a whole totally saint. Like I said, 90%
fucking weirdo
of the time,
just eating apples, right?
90% of the time I'll make good decisions, but, like, you know, I will let myself have. Just the other night I was looking at ho-hos, and I was telling my girlfriend, man, I haven't had these in so long. Bro. So I went and had it. And then what happened? It messed me up, and I felt the consequences the next day. So it reinforced that, you know, you probably shouldn't be eating this. But
of course, the big thing is relationship with food, right? And that's relationship with any vice.
Yes, sir.
That's relationship with food. That's relationship with drugs. That's relationship with sex. That's relationship with alcohol. Like, when are you turning to these things, and are you self-aware enough to realize why you are turning to them? Because if you're self enough to realize why you're turning to them, then you might be able to correct the behavior, right?
Being proactive versus being reactive.
Right, exactly. Like, if I know that every single time I go home to my mom's house and I'm stressed the fuck out, I eat like shit, I'm like, all right, anytime I get into stressful situations, I tend to binge eat, because my thing's always binge eating, right? When I was a kid, I used to starve myself all day because I was so self-conscious about how I look, because I was like obese. Well, I don't know technically I'm still obese now by BMI, but I was like 150, close to 160 pounds in 5th grade. I was a big kid. I got the stretch marks to prove it.
Yeah. Yeah, me too.
And I hit puberty in middle school, thinned out, whatever. Got good at sport. I was also horrible at sports back then, but it's not a topic for another time. But I still always viewed myself, and even to this day a little bit, I'm sure, view myself as that fat little 5th grader, right? And so then I look back at my habits when I was a kid, and I would, like, not eat all day because I was at school all day. And I didn't want to eat around the kids at school because I didn't want them to think that I was fat. I didn't want them to think that I ate a lot. So I was always stressed, especially about food. I'd get home, I'd have this big, grand adult meal. Like, I'm eating, like, when you're talking about calories in, calories out, I was eating way too much for a 4th, 5th grader. And then at night, after everybody would go to sleep, I would eat again by myself. Damn. Like, it'd be like milkshakes, it'd be like leftovers, it'd be like whatever I could get my hands on because I was hungry.
Right.
But then I would just over binge eat at night. And this was a pattern for 10 plus years of my life. I did it throughout high school. And it was because I related food with, like, shame, embarrassment, like a ton of different things, right? And it wasn't until, like, maybe even like 5 years ago that I got a handle on, like, my relationship with food. I still obviously can fall off the edge. I just showed you that video of me this morning from a year ago,
Right.
where I was super overweight, like probably
Right after your surgery, right?
Yeah. And so because I was super stressed, I was super depressed, and I was eating just like nobody's business, right? You see the same thing for people, alcoholism, similar things, not the same. Sexaholics, drug addicts, any sort of addict, right? Or any sort of person that turns to a particular vice. I'm all for, like, if you want to have ice cream every night, just understand why you're having it. If you want to have a drink, shouldn't do it every night, but if you want to have a drink or whatever with your friends, understand why you're doing it, you know?
So know your triggers.
For sure. Know your triggers. If you can establish what your triggers are, then you can almost identify healthier ways to cope with it, right?
Yeah.
On the flip side, conversely, there's people that work out too much because they get super stressed and they go punish themselves in the gym, right?
Yeah.
That has a negative effect on your mental and your physical even too.
Yes, sir.
Have you been able to identify like any triggers or maybe coping mechanisms that weren't good in yourself that you've...
I have a coping mechanism right now that I can't get over because it's a picking disorder. So if you ever looked at me closely, you'll notice that my thumbs are kind of like chafed a little bit. So what happens when I'll be trying to intensely focus on something, subconsciously I'll just sit here, I'll pick at my fingers like this.
Okay.
And then by the time I know, I was like, damn it, I did it again. You know what I mean? And that came from, I think, I used to bite my nails a lot. And so I stopped biting my nails, but I think my body still needed a way to kind of climatize itself. You know what I mean? It was when I'm feeling a certain amount of anxiety, I do this, and then I can focus and figure things out. You know what I mean? So it's all about, like you said, trying to replace that behavior. But they say it's easier just to add a new behavior on top of it. So like maybe instead of when I notice myself picking, I'll do a deep breath, or a double inhale. You know what I mean? A physiological sigh, as you remember would say. You know?
Yeah, and that's crazy, or not crazy, but that's interesting because like, that would be deemed a healthier, right? It's not destructive to your body or whatever. A healthier way to cope with something. A lot of people just don't know about him. So we've talked about Andrew Huberman multiple times on this podcast. I believe he's a very smart dude.
Yeah.
And I think that he puts out a ton of great free information. That's the whole point of his podcast, to really help people understand and identify how their body works inside and out. Right. And to put together best practices on living a healthier, more sustainable lifestyle. So check them out, people, if you haven't. But I wonder where we get, like, why we pick up on these particular like coping mechanisms, right? Like when I think back about like my parents getting divorced and then ultimately my dad leaving, which is a whole thing. Like why, like, was it just like the first time that I felt sadness, I happened to pick up a cheeseburger and I was like, this is good. This is comfort. This is what I want, you know?
Sounds about right.
And is it like a timing thing? Like if that trauma had happened to me later in life and I had sex with someone right after, would I always turn to sex as like a comfort? Right? Because you see that as well in people, right?
In behaviorism and psychology, they would say yes.
Right.
You know, they would say exactly it's the stimulus that you're doing preceding this that makes you feel better. You're going to keep doing whatever made you feel better.
So it's just luck. I mean, I guess I'm not a drug addict, so
there are worse vices and worse ways to cope. You know what I mean?
So yeah, it's interesting, man, because I remember back in that time of my life, and we talk about sports on here. We talk about how that relates to life, and I think that I truly believe that your coach in high school is one of like the most influential people in your lives, good and bad. Right? They can make you hate sports. They can make you love sports. They can make you hate others. They can make you distrusting of authoritarian figures in your life. They can make you too trusting. Like there should be a better there should be like a better vetting system for a lot of coaches out there, because you are so influential in people's lives.
Right.
And I just remember
going back further than that, for me personally, the coaches who influenced me most were my little league coaches.
Right.
When I first started playing football at 9 years old, you know, and I got a good story about that because I like I said, I grew up in Fremont. When I played for Fremont Football League, I played for a team called the Rams. Our head coach was a man named Coach Marshall, and Coach Marshall was ex-military. So the reason I'm always saying yes, sir, thank you, sir, is because he's instilled that in us. He, instead of saying yes, coach, no, coach, it was yes, sir, or no, sir, or you did down ups. So it's like, he already has us doing good behaviors like that I've actually, to this day, people are like, oh, why do you always call me sir? Anybody's older than me or anybody I respect, I'm yes, sir, no, sir. What I mean?
I always say that to people, and people are always like, oh, were you in the military? I'm
exactly.
like, no, it's
I
just
get that
like,
a lot.
I think I get it from football, probably, right?
Right.
It's a term of respect and endearment.
So to your point, man, it's all, if we could have a way to vet these coaches a little bit better, yeah. But I mean, honestly, too, when it comes to coaching, you kind of got to take what you can get. You know what I mean? Because these guys are a lot of times, especially little league coaches, they're doing this for free. They got whole jobs,
I coached for
families.
a year for free, and it's a lot. They ask a lot of you.
Yeah.
It is just super interesting to think that not even just like me and you, obviously a coach, you touch more lives at once, right? Because you get a group of young men or women.
Mm-hmm.
But somebody told me the other day, like, they're like, you don't realize how impactful you are on a certain individual on a daily basis, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I have particular people around me that I'm around more frequently that I've had a more profound impact on. And it just makes you always want to be the best person you are. Whenever I go to a grocery store, whenever I go to a restaurant, whenever I go anywhere, you're rubbing off through osmosis on that person every single time. That every interaction that you have, like, you got to make sure it's a positive one, right? Because people are constantly surrounded by a million negative things on a daily basis, including their own thoughts. So if you can leave a positive interaction on somebody, I used to work in the bank, and I just remember every person that goes into a bank to sit down with a banker, they have something wrong. Nobody's like, hey, you know what? Here's $1 million check. Want to hang out?
Yeah.
It's always like, you fucked up this, you fucked up that. This happened to me. Can you help me out? And so that was a great learning experience for me, because people would come in with issues, and I'd do everything that I could to try to help them or make them feel better about it when they left the branch. And I just think that most people should try to focus on making sure that they leave positive interactions on other people, because maybe I'm not like focusing all on myself, but there's somebody out there that's going to leave a positive interaction with me.
Right.
And I can't tell you how many times I've gone out like to dinner, and I'm like, that waitress was super fucking nice, or that waiter was super nice, or the person at the bank was super nice. And I think that does make my day better, and that's obviously like a small, tiny sample size. We were talking earlier about coaching, and like, you're with these kids for possibly years, but like, I think everybody can just do a better job of like making small positive impacts on people on a daily basis.
My rule of thumb is to always interact with people as if I may pass away tomorrow, or I may pass away after this interaction. Even when I'm interacting with you, I want to be here and present, so much so, and impart on you whatever value that I think I can help you out with. And that's just because I take a stoic view of life and stuff, and nothing is promised, you know what I mean? So, and I want my lasting impression always has to be positive with people.
Right.
And I think that helps me, and that's helped me show up for people.
It
like,
does.
Keep that at the forefront of my brain.
It is absolutely petrifyingly fearsome, or to think like, I could get in my car on the way to the grocery store today and die. Right. And there's so much that's been left unsaid. There's so much that's been left undone. And so you really do need to live life like it is your last moment every single time, because there's so much petty shit that we hold on a daily basis that just like isn't worth it.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff we worry about and stress over, at the end of the day, is not that serious. It's literally not that serious.
Most things aren't that serious, man.
Like, and especially when you look at things in the big span of life. I mean, I think there's something like 70,000 generations of people in our lineage, so we have 70,000 ancestors, right? And you got to think our time on Earth is just a blip of that existence.
So finite.
So, that's how I live, man.
Well, smart by you, good by you. We got to wrap this up. We've been going a bit, which just flew by. You're really fucking good at this. So we'll definitely do it again. Let the people know where they can find you on socials, on everything.
Yeah, I'm Damon Pridgeon on LinkedIn.
Okay.
And I'm Dame Fast on Instagram.
Okay.
So if they can both follow me there, I'll follow them back, and we can continue
engage in some good conversations.
Right.
So you guys heard it here. Obviously follow Dame on everything. Cuts Clothing sponsors. Use code Cody Allen, and I will figure out what episode this is when we catch up.
We'll have to do it again, man. It was fun. Thank you.